The Fifth Estate starts now. The Fifth Estate.
Earl Jones, are you sorry?
Tonight, he only conned the ones he loved.
People loved Earl. He was always, giving them advice or helping them.
Earl Jones helped them out while helping himself to their cash.
Oh, Earl would be, I'll have a little shrimp cocktail, maybe a filet mignon.
All paid for with the millions he embezzled. It was a Ponzi scheme that ran more than 2 decades.
As long as you can convince people to keep giving you money, the wheel keeps turning.
How did Earl Jones do it and get away with it for so long? You think the banks helped him?
The red flags should have, never mind red flags, more than red flags should have gone off.
The blessings of wealth, the trappings of success. He had it all. Position, power, style. And he spread the wealth around, inviting his nearest and dearest to go along for the ride. No one saw it coming. Once a pillar of Montreal's English community, Earl Jones is exposed as a criminal, accused of cheating his clients out of their life savings. Gilles Robillard is on a mission to find the money. He'll have to dig deep. This forensic accountant has investigated other frauds, but none like this.
It was friends, family, the victims, and over such a lengthy period, to be able to keep that facade, let's say, and act as their friends and brother and uncle, without any remorse or whatsoever. It's the first time I see it. It's really quite different.
There's been no checks and the funds are frozen.
Mr. Jones, are you sorry? Earl Jones, are you sorry?
Probably we'll all be selling our houses.
There's a lot of desperate people out there, and we all know that desperate people can do desperate things.
That betrayal is so painful, it's so deep, it keeps you up at night.
I want him to spend the rest of his life in jail, because we are going to spend the rest of our life suffering with nothing left.
Earl Jones swindled 158 investors out of $50 million in a Ponzi scheme that lasted over 2 decades. I'm Hannah Gartner. Welcome to the Fifth Estate. It was all set up to look like an investment opportunity, and it worked because Earl Jones was able to convince new people to hand over more money. But when the cash flow dried up and clients were clamoring for their savings, the con game collapsed. The fascinating thing about this scam is that it lasted as long as it did, right under the noses of accountants, lawyers, and bankers. To unravel the mystery, a battery of experts is tracking the paper trail created by Earl Jones's enterprise. For the next 6 months, they will pore over every check, deposit, and withdrawal. Leading the investigation is Gilles Robillard, along with lawyer Neil Stein, who is representing the victims.
You want to start going backwards or from the beginning?
I'd start going with 1987 for the time being.
Okay, these are the checks that
payable to the corporation.
Payable to the corporation from the in-trust account.
Yeah.
And they go year by year from 86 onward.
When it comes to tracking money, essentially we had access, or we gained access to his personal bank accounts, the corporate bank account, the in-trust bank account, and followed the money.
This is not just paperwork.
No, it's not. Obviously, I've met the victims quite a few times, and I feel very bad for them because they're all elderly people. They're all, you really did a number on them.
It was a grand and empty illusion that fits neatly into 360 boxes. What stumps investigators is, how did Earl Jones get away with it for close to 25 years? The youngest of four, Earl Jones grew up in Montreal's West End in the Anglophone neighborhood of Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, NDG, a tightly knit community where streets were always full of kids. The Joneses could barely keep up with the expense of raising their family of 6. Even back then, it was clear Earl Jones wanted to be a somebody. Older brother Bevan.
I can't remember him having a breakfast or lunch with us, and he always sat in the front room. And my mother would bring him his meal. He always had his phone from maybe 9 years of age. He had his own phone. And this is the kids that Earl grew up with, the same age as Earl.
Always warm, charming, and generous, Earl commanded loyalty. The guys he played hockey with as a kid would remain lifelong buddies. Many of them would eventually seek him out to manage their money. I'm looking at him, this innocent kid. Who would have thought? How he turned out?
I don't know where he went wrong.
Earl married high school sweetheart Maxine Hayward in 1966. Very much the family man, Earl Jones doted on his 2 daughters. In fact, Jones treated everyone like family, and everyone called him Uncle Earl.
He was Uncle Earl to everybody, and everybody liked him because he was there. There was nothing ever missing. Like if, say your husband was sick, and you lived on Hampton or Hingston or whatever street, Earl would be there. Earl would, he was always concerned and nice to people. I can't remember Earl ever not being nice to a person. And
no one ever had anything bad to say about him?
Never.
Earl Jones never had any trouble getting his foot in the door. The fact he quit university before ever completing his commerce degree did not prevent him from landing a plum job with Montreal Trust. That's where he learned the ins and outs of drawing up wills and managing money. Before long, Earl Jones was climbing the corporate ladder. It was Wendy Nellis's late husband Talbot who hired Earl in the early 60s. She recalls how he went from employee to protege to friend. She and Earl Jones go back some 40 years.
It was always Uncle Earl.
And your relationship?
Oh, it was very close. When my husband brought Earl home one evening to introduce him to me, I knew right then and there that they were going to become very close friends.
What gave you that feeling?
Because my husband was one that you always knew whether he liked you or he didn't like you. And I could just tell that he had taken Earl under his wing and said, here's a fella that's a little bit younger than I am. I'm going to teach him the ropes and make sure that he moves up the ladder, and we're going to stay good friends.
And did you have that same instinct, the same instinct your husband had, that this is a good guy?
I did.
Both Wendy and her late husband were disappointed when Earl left Montreal Trust in search of greater opportunity. Eventually, Earl opened his own business, specializing in estates.
And so he would, meet with these widows and say, this is the way you should be organizing your finances. And then next thing you knew, he was saying to these widows, I can look after you. I've got my own company, and let me look after your affairs.
That was in the early 80s. Now, lawyers and accountants are trying to retrieve some of that money Earl Jones managed for those widows. They have to sift through mountains of evidence looking for clues. So far, they have not found a penny, but a pattern is beginning to emerge.
Okay, there was some transfers, huge transfers that were made still. Okay, like 50,000 and 100,000 in one case, but generally it was about in the range of 25,000 a month.
So it starts, the trail starts in 1986, 87.
That's where we started doing a full analysis of all the transactions.
What was it in 1987 that you said, aha, we dig here?
Well, in 1986, we start seeing substantial checks made payable to him. We start seeing substantial checks made payable to his wife. We start seeing transactions that are not compatible with the nature of his supposed operations. Like there appeared to be a lot of expenses in the account that was supposed to be in trust for the benefit of his clients. A lot of that money appeared to be used by him personally.
Are you able to track a trend that maybe it started small and then he said, oh, this is working, let's keep going?
No, that wasn't really gradual. I think once he decided that's the avenue he was taking, I mean, he kept going.
Church may not have brought Earl Jones absolution or salvation, but it did bring in business. That's where he held his estate planning seminars. Through word of mouth, people began flocking to Earl Jones for financial advice. Among them, brother Bevan, who'd recently divorced. He was grateful when Earl agreed to take over his finances.
I just kept giving Earl when I made money. I gave Earl, and he handled everything.
He took care of everything.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he was your brother. For heaven's sakes, if you can't trust your brother, who can you trust? Huh?
There you go.
Did you feel he was not just a friend, but that he was helpful to you?
He was. He was. As I say,
in what way?
He was always there for me. And then when my husband died in 2004, he was the first person at the funeral. And, you know,
comfort and security. That's what
right.
He gave you.
Exactly.
We'll start with 1981 and work it out to 2009 on a month-by-month, check-by-check basis.
Correct, and we have the list of all the checks which have gone either to him or for his personal benefit or to members of his family or for their benefit.
Were you able to tell anything about the pattern of his theft through what he was taking?
I mean, it was pretty... the account was being used as a personal bank account, so I mean, everything from parking tickets to his daughter's schooling to their daughter's weddings, cars for himself, his daughters. I mean, everything was coming out of there the same way as if it was a personal bank account.
Canadian